So I'm gonna call this meeting to order, the budget committee meeting. It's 6:01. If you join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't need a roll call of board members. Kelsey? Here. Jenny? Here. Merle? Here. Heidi? Here. Crystal? Here. And Glenn?
Here.
Sorry, I didn't sleep very much last night. In all fairness, I'm working on Istanbul time. So, sorry, Glenn, thank you. I heard one more. Door. Robert, is that you? Nope.
Nope.
Blake. Okay, so we have flexible board. So do I need a roll call of the budget committee members?
No,
Okay, it's on yours.
well, I guess maybe you do.
It's on the agenda.
It's on it.
Okay, Jay Jones. Jim Yonley,
Here.
Mike Williams. Stacy Miller.
Here.
Jill Schlosser.
Schlosser.
Schlosser. Emily Hammock.
Here.
And Brent, last name?
So now.
So now, okay. Excellent, thank you. So we'll move to elect budget committee chair. Do I hear a motion?
Anybody want to do
I'll nominate.
He wants to do
Ryan.
Jim Yonley? Okay,
Second.
Carrie Never Smith second. We'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, superintendent budget message.
So. Superintendent, could you please present the message for the budget?
Yes, I will.
Page 8.
Dear North Marion School District Budget Committee members, board members, staff, and patrons. In accordance with ORS 294.403, I respectfully submit the proposed 2025-2026 budget for the North Marion School District, which totals $27 million, $27,172,202 for the general fund. This year, our budget process has taken place under very difficult conditions. Due to ongoing financial constraints and continued declines in student enrollment, we have made the incredibly difficult decision to reduce staff by approximately 13%. These decisions were not made lightly. Each position impacted represents a valued member of our educational community, and we recognize the real human and instructional impact of this change. Even as we navigate these financial realities, our mission remains unchanged: to provide every North Marion student with equitable, high-quality learning experiences. I want to express my sincere appreciation to our staff, families, board members, and community partners. Your resilience, creativity, and commitment have been vital. Through each challenge, you've stood by our students and one another. Despite an uncertain future, you have prioritized our students and their experience, which speaks volumes for the kind of community we are in at North Marion. This budget reflects strategic choices that prioritizes early literacy, multilingual supports, transitions, and college and career readiness, all aligned to our integrated strategic plan and shaped by extensive community input. These investments reflect our values and focus our limited resources on areas with the greatest impact. Here are some key budget assumptions. State funding. based on a projected state school fund allocation of $19,306,204, assuming an $11.359 billion state budget. Enrollment continued ADMW decline consistent since 2015-2016. Property taxes, slight increase projected. Fund balance use. $2 million of ending fund balance invested as beginning fund balance. Accounting basis, modified accrual, which is the same as the 2024-2025 budget. Expenditures, 73% general fund expenditures are personnel related. A $203,000 decrease in total personnel costs reflects reductions in force and increased PERS costs. A 4.5% COLA for most staff, 3% COLA and a 1.5% longevity for classified staff when certain contract terms are met. Health insurance cap increased by $70 per month. School year maintained at 173 student contact days. $777,000 allocated to contingency. And $500,000 in plan reserve. Staffing and program priorities. Despite reductions, we have preserved and focused our investments in the following: early literacy and foundational learning, targeted student services and transitions, multilingual and multicultural student support, career and technical education, also frequently known as CTE, and dual credit opportunities. Challenges ahead. We remain concerned about declining enrollment and its long-term implications. Rising costs due to inflation, the sunset of federal relief funds, commonly known as ESSER, and a school funding formula that has not kept up with inflation or student need. While not part of the general fund, we are cautiously optimistic about federal and state special revenue funding levels. These include title programs, the Student Investment Account, Measure 98, early learning funds, and grants supporting literacy and summer learning. In closing, this budget is about hard choices and strategic ones. It reflects both the realities we face and our determination to deliver on our promises to students. We call on state leaders to prioritize stable and sufficient funding for education so that districts like ours can avoid such difficult decisions in the future. To our staff, community, and partners, thank you. Your efforts, whether visible or behind the scenes, build the foundation on which we continue to grow. Together, we will keep working toward a future in which every child in North Marion is seen, supported, and successful. With gratitude, resolve, and commitment, Daniel Bush, Superintendent, North Marion School District.
Well, thank you, Dan Bush, Superintendent. Appreciate that message. Move on to review and deliberations of the proposed 25-26 budget. Presenter, budget officer, and business manager.
I'll just start out with a couple of housekeeping things. Some of you were in the room when I said this. We had a lot of printing issues this week. Well, last week, and didn't have a printer, so I was running back and forth to the middle school. They would print jobs in between my stuff, and so your pages might be out of order. I found one in my book, but I didn't have time to look over 200 and some pages for 20 people. So apologize now. Also apologize that the holes got punched in the numbers sometimes, but you'll figure it out. 8, 10, 12, it goes like that.
We were students here once.
Yeah. So we know you well. I'd like to go to page 11 and 12. I put page 11 in here for our appropriations, just so you have a general idea. You will not approve this, you will approve it. You will not resolve this tonight. That will happen at the board meeting when it's adopted. But I wanted you to see the general fund, the special revenue funds, and that while Dan's message talked about a $27 million general fund, overall, we have $41 million in all of our funds. So I just wanted to point that out for you. Also wanted to point out that we talked about in our budget workshop, putting an unappropriated ending fund balance in the general fund with $500,000, and it is there. You'll see it in red on that first column. You will be imposing the taxes tonight. That is one of your jobs. We do it twice. We do it now and in the June meeting, just because we've always done it in the June. Meeting. So make sure it's done and done right. But the taxes for the general obligation bonds are a little bit higher than what they were prior year, and it happens like that pretty much every year. But with usually your taxes don't go up, or if they do, it's very little because of the new developments or new construction. Now let's flip to page 13 and on. This is more about staffing. I think you saw this first page 13 in the budget workshop. So it's showing you our number of FTE by classification and our numbers from 15-16 through 25-26. You can see we're a little lower than we were in 15-16, which is when we had our highest enrollment as far as FTE. But we're a lot lower than what we were for 24-25, but we're projecting about 40 some less students. So there's a reason we're low. 45 students is a lot of money. And the graph explains that to you. And I know that in the budget workshop, I gave you this page that had the ratios, staffing to students. So in 15-16, we had 9.35 staff per student. And we're projecting with this budget 7.74. So we brought that down into a better place. We had been at 6.87 for 23, for 24-25, and not sustainable. So here we are. We are hoping that we can find the balance for North Marion with our enrollment and our staffing. What is our balance? And that's what this next year will help us to decide. Can we do it with the staff we have, or does the enrollment continue to decline and we have to maybe adjust some more? So hopefully we'll figure that out in this biennium, and then maybe the next biennium there will be more funding for schools. We know there's housing developments happening. I was going to ask Glenn to share what you know about Hubbard.
So there's approximately 60 acres. It's inside of city limits. It was a growth boundary went inside the city limits. They have just recently asked for an extension on their proposal, their approval to move forward with a development. They were already 2 years in, but they came and asked for approval from city. And obviously we gave them that approval, or the planning commission gave them that approval. So that is still definitely on the table. I think probably some of it's dependent on interest rates and what interest rates, do, how quickly that would build out. But they're proposing a number of apartment buildings and a number of single family dwellings in that piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's move on to general fund revenue on pages 19 and 20.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Of course.
And since you were talking about, number of students, so I just did a high level analysis going through this, and I looked at salaries and, labor related costs, at the K-5, middle school, high school level, that totals of, and this is outside of administration and office of the superintendent, that totals about $9.3 million. Roughly. When I look at those on here in each of the functions.
If you're only looking at general fund, then that's probably about right.
Okay.
We have instructors in other. funds,
Okay.
special ed.
All right, so then in the same general fund, I was looking at, in the same general fund, I looked at SLP and the resource room and ESL. We spend about close to $4 million there on headcount, labor, related costs. And it's hard for me to see what the headcount is, like sorry, I say headcount, I'm in finance, and so we always refer to everything as headcount, but the students of each of those, classifications, but the SLP resource ESL, and I don't know, and I can't tell from this, how much is reimbursed via grants or state funds but I mean, that expense right there is about 42% of the total
Very
Late-
common
late-
right now.
which seems really high, when I bet the student ratio between the categories is probably, you probably have, I mean, I have no idea, I mean, let's take the high school, you know, I think it's like 130 is in the senior class, and I know it's doing, so, you know, maybe let's average, you know, looking at a high level, let's average at 110 per class. So there we have, you know, 440 in the high school, I don't know how many in the middle school, but
We have about 600 in the high school.
Okay.
And about 450 in the middle school and a little less in the intermediate and only about 300 and something in the primary. I had, I actually could give you numbers, at the budget workshop. We,
1150,
through those.
that's
I think it's less.
1050 and another,
be like three.
so it's close to 1,700 roughly students, is that right?
we're at, I think.
But that
I'll get
includes
it for you.
students that are in the SLP.
all
Resource
schools,
and-
we count,
Yes.
we
Yeah,
count
so
all
is there any breakout? I was just curious what the ratio is between labor costs for the students in the general fund for K through 5, middle school, high school, all together versus what our cost is per student at the SLP resource and ESL. I was just, because I was like, these costs are really high. 42% of our total, you know, of our total labor costs at the other 4 schools.
Mhm, yes. I would be remiss to give you that information for just the general fund,
Okay,
because a lot of our ESL's staff are paid out of our SIA money. That's a special revenue fund.
okay,
And we probably have 8 paid out of that.
okay.
So, and that's money too. If I were to give you that kind of information, I would hope that you would want to see it as a whole.
Yeah, I
for
was just
the
kind of
district.
curious at a high level, what is our
I don't
per
have those numbers with
student
me.
costs
Well,
at
You-
that is not, that's fund, has to be funded, that we're not getting reimbursed for, you know, that's part of this 41 million or 40 million. Do you see where I'm going with this
I think-
question?
I do think I see where you're going with it, and I think there's a couple things to address here with that. So when we start talking about SLP and especially special education programs, and I think I made this at the workshop, is that we're pretty limited as to what we can reduce there. There's what's called maintenance of effort. And so when you're having discussions of budget reductions in special education programs, it's pretty limited as to what you can reduce there, because you have to demonstrate that you're maintaining the effort to serve those students.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it should be, I'm not saying that should be, I'm just saying, what is the cost here? Like, is it really unproportioned?
yes,
Yes, yes.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
that's what, and I know it's not North Marion and I don't know, where is North Marion in the cost per student for these SLP
I think our
resources?
overall, our percentage of students, and I'm just talking in a bigger picture of special education. I think our percentage of students in special education would be very equivalent to what you would see in a lot of school districts. I think we pretty well reflect that there as well. And I think one of the things that was really unfortunate about with the state revenue forecast is up until last Wednesday, the 2 areas that we were really hoping the state was going to come through for on was in the case of high cost disability costs for students that cost school districts a lot of money to serve. And the fact that the state funding cap is at 11% for special education funding. And we were hoping the legislature was moving towards increasing that until the revenue forecast came out, and that came to a screeching halt. So I think that we were all across, when I say all, school districts across the state were anticipating more special education funding for exactly what you're bringing
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I even looked at the bus costs, we spent close to 1.8 million, this
No,
is in the.
we spent 2 million, over 2 million.
Yeah, but 1.8 related to just general, and then we spent close to 600K for this SLP, and I'm like, I mean, it just seems really disproportionate in.
I think if you looked at any school
Yeah.
district's budget, you would see the same
Okay.
thing, Emily.
Yeah, and I don't
It
see
is-
any other
it is
districts,
what
so
it
Yeah.
is.
this is just more my thoughts as I was going through and looking at the numbers and just thinking about, you know, a budget and how it comes together and it just, and I know, you know, in the schools, it's all about, let's be equitable, and I'm like, well, is that really equitable if it's costing more for in a one population versus another?
In the state school fund, everybody gets an 11% IEP percentage added on to. So if, say I have 1,000 students, 11% more, I would get funded for another weight for that. For special education students. But that is something that Dan was talking about. We were hoping that might go up to 15%. It is not.
I think you guys said 17 or something.
Yeah, it is not
Last
going to
week.
do that, Jill.
So when we're talking special education funds and these funding, are we talking about students in like contained classrooms, or are we talking and including all students who have IEPs and 504s?
All,
All.
Okay, so there's, I mean, I know that there's. I bet that number is higher than like a contained classroom,
Much. higher.
much higher.
yes,
Much higher.
yes.
So IEPs and 504s are not uncommon, so there's lots of students that have those as well, so those are part of that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so if, when you think about our students that push out into regular ed classrooms, how do you quantify the cost? They may have a staff member that goes with 2 or 3 students to that classroom, but we're also having a teacher teach them too.
Right,
So how
exactly.
would you,
Yeah,
how would you differentiate that and give you the number you're looking
Right,
for?
right, right, yeah.
That would be very difficult to do.
I mean, transportation alone, I was kind of just blown away by, we had 1 it was, I think it was 1.8 is, if I remember the number, on buses for, and then we spent another 600K.
We get,
And those other buses might only have 1 student on, I'm like,
we get 70% reimbursed if it's
Yeah.
home to school type transportation. We don't get the reimbursement for athletics. We get it for field trips,
Yeah.
those sorts of things.
yeah,
So when you see a $2 million price tag, we're getting back.
yeah, okay, some of it back, but I mean, but then on the 600, I'm sure you're getting some of that back too, so.
It's the
You know, I
same
was
thing.
comparing apples to apples.
70%
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
back.
yeah.
So, yeah.
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 So even if we knock the 1.8 down 70%, we're still gonna knock the 600
Of
down,
course.
another 70%, we're still comparing. It's just, yeah, anyways, I was just,
All right, you good?
yeah. I don't think there's anything you can do, so. Make sure that, I mean, I just, it
Yeah.
just is.
Just,
Really understand.
Where do those reimbursements show up in the budget?
In the state school fund formula, when I showed you the state school
It
fund in the
shows,
workshop,
That you spend and then it shows a credit there?
Yeah.
So that.
yeah,
would
it's just part of the
show up.
formula. You add transportation back in and there it is. Anybody can look on the website and see it. It's public knowledge for every school district in the state. We're all right there, what we get. So,
So you can go online and check that out and look at the books. and-
Yeah.
and see.
go state schools fund estimates for schools. And it'll give you year after year after year after year. And you put in the find North Marion, you'll find us, or put in Jervis. Put in Joseph or one over there. They get reimbursed 90% for their transportation. So it's
And it
really,
would show the expense and it would show the reimbursement that they make.
yes, it's part of the formula to figure that out. Your
Okay.
local revenue and then transportation. Yeah.
So Linda, do you have more information for us?
Sure, I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did want to mention in the revenue, information on page 19 and 20, that I have budgeted in expecting, or it's so that if we got more revenue from the state, it's in the budget and appropriated so we can spend it. We will not spend it, or Kim will not spend it if we don't get it. So, we will make sure that that doesn't happen. I did want to point out on page 19, the, function 5400, and the fact that it's going down. So we were at, in 22-23, 3.54. And then actual in 23-24, 2.9, now 2.8 was adopted. 2 million is the proposed for this year, so we're down about $855,000. So I just want to point that out. I think that's a big number that you should keep looking at and watching as the years go by. You can't get it to 0, or you don't have anything to work with for the next year. Then if we flip to the expense information, kind of the same idea, pages 22 through 24. This is broke up into a 5-year summary for your actuals and adopted and proposed by the function, and I'll explain to you where to learn what these functions mean in a minute, but also by FTE for those years for each function code. So like Emily, you would see in the 1000s, that's for teaching students. So you could add up those FTE and know that that's the FTE. And you could also see the FTE in your 1220 and your 1250. Also in 1291, but the FTE there is only 4.6. So if you, for the rest of it, it's the next page where you have the other funds and you can see special revenue funds has 48.5 people. So that's your SIA, which has a lot of ESOL and ESL, and then food service and some IDEA. There's a lot of FTE now in our special revenue funds. That's been trending up in the last 3 years. The next page, page 24, is really kind of a nice gauge that I like to point out to people that call me on the phone or something, because it gives you an idea. You know, people say to me, how can you possibly spend that much on salaries and benefits? Well, we're a service organization. We serve students with people. So of course, we're gonna have a high percentage of our costs go to salaries and benefits. So you can see the actuals for 23-24, what we adopted for 24-25, and then the proposed. You can see that 77 and 78% of our general fund is salaries and benefits. Then we have all the others. But our larger purchase services and other, our overhead that we have to have is 12.38% of our budget. So when you get said, it's all said and done, you might have 10% of this budget in the general fund that can be spent on other things. So it's not a huge amount, that's discretionary money. So we need to buy toilet paper, just paper towels, those sorts of things are always what we, you know, that's gonna eat up a lot of our supplies and that, so. Then,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure,
Is that enough for electricity? Cause isn't there like a 10 or 18% hike coming?
yeah,
natural
last
gas
time it
is
was
also-
385, and I don't think I'm gonna spend my adopted was 385, and I don't think I'm gonna hit that, but, yeah, it's gonna hit 415. I don't think it'll go much higher than that, because I'm not gonna hit 385 this year.
Cause when is the 10% coming? You know which one I'm talking about? It's on the books.
They usually bring it in January.
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
us.
say,
January?
we had a raise in January.
Yeah.
And
What's that, got a 11%
Mhm.
Yeah,
in there, between the 385 and 415,
okay.
Yeah.
and there's 11% in there.
And I don't
He's
think
not
we're
gonna
gonna
spend
hit the
385.
3. Excuse
You
me,
said you're not gonna spend the,
I
you
don't
don't
think we're
think-
gonna hit the 385 this year. I think it's gonna be a little lower, and so therefore I figured
Okay.
we're good with the 415.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it.
Um. I think that's. Probably all we need to say on that. Now just flip to the very end, page 224 to 228. That's where you can learn what the fund is when you're looking in the detail, what its principal resources, what the revenue resources and the purpose of the fund. So it gives you a great general idea of what these fund numbers mean and what they're spent on. If you keep going through that, you get the revenue from local funds, you'll find these, what we call function codes. The 1111 is current property taxes and the like. And if you go on down to page 226, there's in the $5,000 revenue code, there's a 5,400. And I wanted to explain, because I've talked about earlier in the budget workshop, the contingency, the planned reserve, and the beginning and ending fund balance. So your 5,400 is your beginning fund balance. The net resources of the fund on June 30th of the current year, that's available to move into 25-26 to be your beginning fund balance. So that's your prior year's ending fund balance is now your beginning fund balance. And then if you flip to the very last page, you see in the 6,000, there's a contingency, and that's an operating contingency. We'll talk about this in the budget workshop. We can spend the contingency. There's no law that says that you can't. But we have put $500,000 in the 7,000, the unappropriated ending fund balance, and it cannot be spent in this fiscal year that we're approving. So we have that 500,000 there because we're expecting our enrollment to decline about 45 or more. And we wanted to have a fail safe for that. So hopefully next year, we're not looking at reductions in staff. And if we are, maybe it would only be whatever happens naturally through attrition. So, that's what we're saying. I'll take questions now. If anyone has them.
Well, I believe the unappropriated ending fund balance is basically the beginning balance of next year. And that allows us to get through those first few months of expenses until the taxes and property tax starts coming in.
It certainly helps, but the way the state gives up their money now, we get a double payment in July for our state school funding. We didn't used to when I first started this job. And that has helped a lot of districts get through the summer and the first payroll in September, because you don't get any tax payment until
Yeah, for a
October.
while, for
Yeah.
several months.
October or November, and so it was hurting a lot of districts, so they had decided that they would divvy it up 2 in July and then 1 every month through May. So that really does help.
Okay.
There's a considerable expense in the benefits section, and I wondered if one of you would mind explaining those various PERS lines,
Be happy to.
UAL, PERS, OSI, et cetera, and they're all high.
Yes, and they went up on an average of about 10% on first costs
And
from
I would
last year.
guess they all compound
Yes,
based on salary.
have
Just
salaries.
as salary compounds based on salaries and step increases, but I just thought it would help us all to understand what I don't understand, at least about PERS pickup, PERS employer,
I'm happy
PERS UAL,
to
et cetera, et cetera.
help with that. So let's just all run to page 32. You see a function 1220 salaries total, and then there's the 211, 12, 13, 14, and 16. Those are all PERS related expenses. So 211, we call it PERS employer. That was the original PERS. Tier 1 and tier 2 people get paid out of that. Their percentage of their payroll is 8.97 this year, whereas 11 almost 12%. How's that? It was 1.38 for us last year. It went up to about 12%. The PERS pickup is the 6% pickup that we pay at this district. Most districts pay it, but not all anymore. So there's plenty of districts that have upped people's salaries, but then they have to pay their own PERS. So that's a 6%.
Is that negotiated through the union or is that a choice?
That is negotiated. And like Linda said, most districts do pick it up. And there is a slight trend now not to, but when you do that, you typically you put that 6% into their salary, so.
And I can see that happening a little bit more than it used to, because the way PERS works for OPSERP employees, which you'll see on the 216 line. It's not looked at the same as tier 1 and tier 2 when you go to retire. And so for some, as we move out of tier 1, tier 2 people, like I'm a tier 2, I'm retiring, okay? And we're mostly OPSERP people now, where when I started, the pendulum was completely different. That will continue to change, and it'll make a difference in what unions ask for, I believe. Just because of the way it does and doesn't work.
It will be in those members probably better interest in their retirement to have it moved into their salary. So that's probably not a next year sort of thing, but you're gonna see that across the state. I would predict that those will probably move into salaries in a way. It'll be kind of a wash, so to speak, in terms of budgeting, because that 6% will go from PERS into salaries, I would think.
Probably the next 5-10 years.
Yes.
I would think.
Things
I would agree. Yeah,
spin around when you
yeah.
and come out in Washington.
So,
Yeah, I know that a PERS tends to be a very large paycheck to write every month.
it certainly.
It's a big, but as those people retire and no longer collect, then it actually becomes better for the municipalities,
Yeah,
school district, et cetera, et cetera.
Linda,
That money will come back into the system. So,
thank you. What else were we working on?
Well, we were on the PERS, so I've
So
only
why
done
is-
two.
So you said 211 under all these, that is the one in the tier one
Tier
and
one
tier
and tier two.
two. Why is everyone the adopted versus the proposed? It's way greater than 10%, an increase of, you said it went up like,
No, let me see if I can explain it. So. What you're
this is
looking at-
primary K through 5.
Excuse me. So not everybody is a tier one, tier two employee.
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
so you have to look at that along with OPSERV, and that's gonna get you to some sort of number, okay? Some, not in this one all has some sort of PERS. Overall, this would be about, you're looking at adopted 24, 25, about 32% probably. No, less 10, so 22% probably overall. And then this one is more like 42%. So let me finish that PERS, and it might start to make more sense if I keep going with it. So the PERS UA contribution is our PERS first unfunded liability bond that we did. So a lot of districts in the state in 2002 and 2003 went out for a bond to pay off their unfunded liability for PERS. And that helped reduce our rates over the years since we went out for that bond. We have saved millions. I want to say $8 or $9 million on that. By doing that, we've saved that so we could spend it on something else in our budget. We did that again in 2021. That's your 214 PERS UAL POB 2021. There was a number of districts again that did that. So far, we lucked out and we saved big money the first year. Slowed down now, but we're way ahead of the game. It would have, we have seen reductions in our tier one, tier two and OPSERV numbers, percentage that we have to pay because of that. In fact, this year and last year, our OPSERV number was 0. We did not have to pay any percentage on OPSERV because of our unfunded liability. Now, we still charge something to each salary that is for PERS eligible people, and not everybody's PERS eligible at first. But we charge something because we have to make the bond payment. So there's still something, but if you looked at other districts, when I said, yeah, our costs next year for associated payroll costs are gonna be over 40%, other people said, mine already are. And I'm like, you didn't do any UALs? Nope. So they're gonna be at 50% next year. So there's a lot of reason. It was definitely a gamble to do it, but we are happy we did it really with them. And then the last one is 216, that's OPSERV, that we call that sometimes tier 3. So those are people that were started in PERS after August of 2003, I believe. So that's why there's so much, and it went up so much because we have our UAL, the one that is number 213, is going off the books in 2028. And they had to start readjusting us now to make sure every district can pay theirs off and get taken care of. So we didn't get as good of a percent deduction. Now, PERS is something they're talking about giving us a 1.68% credit. But that's for districts who don't have a UAL, and we're a little concerned if that's going to be our credit. I have heard you might save a half to 1% and maybe don't count on 1.68 for those that have filed.
So that's why I don't fully understand it, but I see the jump here, $2,000 some to $59,000 some
Yeah.
on that line.
Yeah.
And is that bond purchase that they call sides? Sides, is that,
It's called a side account,
yeah.
and we make bond payments over a 22-year
And so
period.
you've done that.
Yeah.
Have a side account, and that's the bonds that you
Yeah.
purchase.
Yeah.
I was here when that happened and we were very thankful that Linda brought that bond forward. So we could save millions of dollars.
Yeah, there's a couple districts in the state that lost the gamble on that, and they don't ever want to hear the word, but most of us really came out in pretty good shape. And I think it wasn't just school, K-12, but it was community colleges and others that did it too. So worked out for us.
Yeah, this is my first year on the budget committee here for the North American School District. And what I will say is, you can't retire.
Thank you, Jim. But I'm going
Excellent.
to.
You can't retire.
Jim, I think Jill had a question.
I have two questions. The first is the contingency you noted was 777,000. Is that the 3% from?
Approximately 3%.
And I did. My math is not as good as yours. I trust your math. But so that amount is the 3% that the board required. Okay.
Yes,
And
yes.
then my second question is,
Can I
Oh.
just put a caveat on?
Yeah.
It's a little short because I added more in case we get our PERS, in case we're gonna get the IEP or SPED money and or,
Well, the PERS, or is that, but you already
no,
put that
there's
all.
one other thing.
Uh,
So I added a little more and then I didn't, so we're about 15 grand short on the 3%, but we're there.
is that, oh, okay.
Pretty close.
My second question is about the preschool. I know it's part of the district, but I suppose I was a little surprised to see it on the general fund, because I don't know how it works, but it looks like the tuition, except for the proposed for next year, have been increasing.
Mhm.
Is that because of more students? And if so, could
We
that be
raised
indicative of, like,
rates last year, I believe it was last year,
Yeah.
we raised the rates.
yeah,
so-
but I know the rates, because I'm an invested party, and they really didn't raise that much.
No, not very much.
So I mean.
When I look at this, but so if you look at page 20, Jill,
uh-huh, uh-huh,
and you see the the 1311, which is tuition from a preschool.
uh-huh.
The 22-23, we were just coming out of COVID, so you really can't count that.
Oh,
Well,
good
and we
point.
only had one FTE then.
Okay.
And then we started building back up. I don't believe we're gonna hit the 125,000 that we adopted for 24-25 because we
Okay.
didn't fill every seat every month.
Okay,
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 if we would have, we would have been there. So I reduced it to about 115. And then if you would then just flip to page 31, you can see that the pre-K kindergarten program is slated to cost us 126, which is a little higher than our 115 that we're budgeting. So the
Okay.
general fund is covering about 10 grand of it, if it all plays out the way. it's
okay, yeah, so that's not, I mean, there's
It's not.
pretty close to even.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
concerned about it, I was just.
Yeah.
Not really sure.
And then if you also look on the flip side of that, my adopted expenses were 115 for that year, and the prior year I budgeted 125. I don't think I'm gonna quite get 125, but I probably, it ebbs and flows. We come out ahead some years and below some years.
Do you, anecdotally, do you know if there's been an increase in enrollment and?
There has been this
Okay,
year.
and 2 FTEs is still sufficient for,
Yeah, we have the morning and the afternoon
Okay.
program, and 2 FTE seems to be about to take that pretty well. We always fill our morning slots and have every time
Really?
filling our afternoon slots.
interesting. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion, any more questions?
You wanna offer public comment? We have one person in public.
Oh, good one, yeah. Any public information, any comments, any input?
Looks like, don't point at me. Okay.
Thank you. Hearing none. Any comments for the proposed budget? Any comments against the proposed budget? Any comments either way, not for or against the proposed budget?
Lovely evening.
So, I mean, at this point, we could go out for
And then,
Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the current budget as proposed?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed 2025 budget in the amount of the 41. That number, right, but really, making sure I'm reading the right number. The 41,423,369 as presented for North Marion.
And thank you, and
I'll
any second?
I'll second. Can I make a discussion point on that?
Oh,
It's for the 2025-2026.
Sorry, I said
No problem.
Yeah.
All right, so 2025, 2026 proposed school budget. All the, sorry,
Any discussion?
needs more.
You're good.
So all in favor of the proposed budget and second, say aye.
I,
Aye. Any against, say nay. Not hearing any against, it has been, motion is made and passed.
Thank you.
Okay, so, at this point, I don't, if there's anything else we need to discuss, any new business?
Yeah,
wait,
whatever,
we
to-
need
to
number
do
H.
Number
We
H,
have
yes.
Do you want to start us off on number H?
Well, I don't care. Do you need that written
I do.
read out? Okay, be it resolved that the Budget Committee of the North Marion School District 15 hereby imposes the tax provided for the approved budget at the district's permanent rate of $3.33, 3 1/3, for $1,000 of assessed value for operations in the amount of $2,390,247 for debt services on general obligation bonds. And that these taxes are hereby imposed and categorized for tax year 25-26 upon the assessed value of all property within the district.
I'll second if you need that. Do you need a vote on that?
Yep.
Jim, will you call us for a vote?
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. And it has been passed for the resolution imposing and categorizing taxes for fiscal year 2025 through 2026.
Thank you.
Excellent. I will take it back over. So, I will send this meeting now to Superintendent Bush.
Yes, so I would like
Thank you,
to introduce our new business manager. And so Kim, we got a couple open chairs over there. So while you're making your way up here, I would like to make a couple of comments. That at our last board meeting, Heidi made the observation that it was just about a year ago that I was being interviewed, and it doesn't seem like that long ago. And Linda's heard me tell the story multiple times that during the interview, one of the questions they asked me are, what's one of the strengths of the North Marion School District? And I honestly can't remember what the first two were that I said at that time, but I said, I said, you know, these two things, and I said, and Linda Murray is your business manager. And literally Linda was probably sitting as close to me as I was being interviewed at that time. Of course, I really appreciated the fact that she said 4 points like that. Yes, yes. And so coming here as the new superintendent, I didn't know I was getting the job at the time I said that, but Linda's reputation across the state of Oregon was widely known, is widely known, and is well deserved. You know, this process that we just completed, you know, it doesn't happen in one session in many places. And the only reason it happens in one session time after time is based on one word, and that word is trust. And the level of trust that people have in you, Linda, is amazing. And I very much appreciate having got to work with you. And I still get to work with you for a little bit longer and a little bit longer after that, and then we'll talk about that later. So I did want to say that congratulations on yet another single meeting passage of a budget. Yes. So, but I am also very excited to introduce Kim Dowd as the new business manager, assuming those responsibilities on July 1st. And since we're in a budget committee meeting, I thought I'd bring some numbers here because I was in a meeting last week with Kim's current superintendent and was sharing some of the things that they've accomplished this last year in Silver Falls. And so I'd like to read a few of the things that Kim has accomplished this last year. Because a year ago at this time, the Silver Falls School District was having some financial distress. And so here are some numbers to think about is that a year ago in Silver Falls, the fund balance was only at 1.6 million, which included a 3.8 million TAN loan that had to be taken out because otherwise the district would have ended in a 2.2 negative ending fund balance. So that was a year ago. 1 year later, after paying back 3.9 million in a TAN loan, the projected ending fund balance at Silver Falls is estimated to be $2.1 million, which represents a $4.3 million swing in 1 year through Kim's outstanding leadership in that capacity. On top of that, their superintendent reported that they've started 2 new reserve accounts, $500,000 in a capital reserve fund and $340,000 into a PERS reserve fund. So again, those are all forward-thinking things that Kim and the leadership there at Silver Falls that I heard about last week did. So I just think that, again, when we talk about trust, we're very fortunate to have someone of Kim's ability here and having got to work with Kim for 5 years there in Silver Falls. I can also say the level of care that she treats people is the same that we have had with Linda here. She deeply cares for people. And so we are excited to have you. And so if there's anything you would like to share to the group, you're welcome. Putting you on the spot there a little bit.
Yes, definitely did. Well, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to join the district. I definitely am a service-oriented individual, and that was part of what has drawn me here. I have looked up to Linda for many years as I've grown my career, coming from private sector and CPA firms and joined school finance and had no idea how unique of a web it is. And so it's been great to have peers like Linda to learn from. Very excited to be here. I want to be very, very clear that while Silver Falls has really made some great movements, it is not done by any one person. As we all know, it takes the entire team, and there was a lot of sacrifice. There's, just as you guys are feeling here, there was a lot of very emotional work to be done, and a lot of families were impacted. Our students have been impacted, but we are amazed at the resilience. Our leaders in front of those students every day, that is what brings me to work every day, is so that I can support people who can have the gift to be in front of students all day, because we each have our own gifts, and that is not mine. So if I can support those that can be in front of students, but we found that our students can thrive actually because of those incredible leaders that are out there. So it definitely has been a district-wide, all hands on deck approach to turn things around. And I know very similar weights are on. Linda and I've talked about this, that you carry a lot of weight when you are helping guide a place through those reductions. That it is not a numbers thing, it is a people business. And so when you are having to be in Dan and Linda's shoes and delivering that message, there's nothing worse really. But through transparency and complete, yep, it's not great right now, but we were able to turn it around. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I'm really looking forward to doing my best to fill the shoes of someone who I greatly respect, and just thank Linda for all of her years of guidance. But don't tell anyone I have to ask this question, right? And so, that's how we get there, right? So it's been great, and I wish her the best and look forward to trying to absorb as much as we can. So, but thank you all. Look forward to working with all of you.
Well, great. Well, we we purposely scheduled our first board meeting at the end of July for Kim, so we can get started. And so those of you that are on the budget committee, if you're interested in tuning in, July 28th, you can tune into a summer board meeting. So that's all and with the busy schedules, this was a good opportunity for Kim to meet our board. And obviously timely to be at a budget committee meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I'd just like to echo again from the board about how much we love Linda. And how grateful we are for your many, many, many years of service. We have a new high school also because of her, so. Things have just gotten done with Linda on our team and we're gonna really wish you well, but hopefully keep you close. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting at, what time is it? 6:56. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, everyone.
Adjourn.
It was 6:57 last year.
So one.
Yeah.
I know.
It's a number.
Jim, thanks for leading us.
So you're gonna save us 2.3 million this year?
Are we off the record?